When we see news footage of conflicts in the Middle East, it is easy to feel a sense of detachment. The explosions and shifting borders are happening nearly 3,000 kilometers away. We might worry about friends or family working in the Gulf, but when it comes to our daily lives here in India, we generally assume our local economy is safely insulated from the fallout. That assumption masks a massive structural vulnerability. India produces very little of its own petroleum. We import nearly 90% of our crude oil and natural gas to keep the country running, and the majority of those imports do not have multiple routes home. Over half of our crude oil supply must pass through a singular, narrow choke point, the Strait of Hormuz, a waterway just 33 kilometers wide. Looking at this chart tracking global crude prices, you can see the immediate effect of regional instability. As shipping companies factor in the risk of navigating this contested strait, the cost of crude oil violently spikes, jumping from $60 to $120 a barrel in a matter of days. This doubling of crude prices initiates a specific mathematical chain reaction, serving as the primary trigger for a massive, nationwide economic recession. Most people see a spike in crude oil and only worry about the price of petrol and diesel at the pump. Crude oil is the hidden raw material inside almost everything you buy, from plastics and soaps to fertilizers. Beyond production, moving these items to your local store requires fuel. Even the price of local vegetables is tied to the cost of running delivery trucks. When oil gets expensive, it creates a dual pressure environment. The cost to make a product increases exactly as the cost to deliver it increases. Our total reliance on petroleum means a price shock doesn't isolate to one sector. It causes uncontrollable inflation, setting up a broader economic collapse. As everyday survival becomes more expensive, citizens are forced to adjust. They delay buying clothes, stop eating out, and drastically cut back spending. This sudden drop in consumer activity hits the corporate sector immediately. Companies watch their revenues plummet, while their operational costs remain high, destroying profit margins. To survive, businesses have to stop the bleeding. They freeze new hiring, halt salary increases, and eventually begin massive layoffs. This creates a dangerous self-feeding loop. People losing jobs have less money, shrinking consumer demand, forcing more businesses to shut down. We can quantify this damage. For every $10 increase in global crude oil prices, India's gross domestic product shrinks by roughly 0.5%. We have seen this exact sequence of events play out before. The 1973 Middle East oil crisis caused crude prices to quadruple in mere months, triggering this exact cycle of inflation and widespread job loss across the globe. That global shock severely degraded India's domestic economy. The resulting financial strain and political unrest directly laid the groundwork for the 1975 Indian emergency. When an economy's GDP shrinks for 2 consecutive quarters, it enters a technical recession. Right now, importing high-priced oil means India is tracing the exact historical blueprint for a recession. We do not need to wait for a formal declaration to see the effects. The early symptoms of this cycle are already hitting the Indian economy today. Because international oil is traded in dollars, India has to spend massive amounts of its currency to secure the fuel it needs, driving the rupee down to historic lows against the US dollar. Simultaneously, commercial LPG shortages are already forcing restaurants across major cities to halt operations, an industry that accounts for roughly 3 to 4% of India's entire GDP. Right now, the nation is avoiding a total halt only because the government is tapping into its strategic petroleum reserves. But current data shows that supply will only last for another 50 to 60 days. With that deadline approaching, individuals need to play defense. This is the exact moment to halt large, unnecessary purchases and aggressively funnel cash into an emergency fund. For investors, the instinct might be to cancel monthly systematic investment plans, or SIPs. Instead, if you have the cash flow, you can use the resulting market volatility to buy high-quality assets at a discount while the broader market panics. You can also protect your portfolio through geographical diversification. Moving a portion of your investments into US or global equity markets can act as a strong hedge if the domestic economy slows down. The average citizen has no control over naval blockades or geopolitical conflicts, but by understanding the strict mechanics of how an oil shock translates into a recession, you have the opportunity to build a financial fortress before those 60 days run out.